Hey, what's going on, everyone? Jim Lawson from Jiu-Jitsu Magazine here with Coach Ben, and welcome to another episode of Drawing the Line, where we're going to break down three matches this weekend. We have Who's Number One, Fight to Win 168, and Submission Underground 21. So, Coach Ben, where can they go to bet?
All right, so this week, especially if you want to bet the undercard of the Fight to Win, the women's only card, and also the undercard of Submission Underground, you're going to go to the Fight to Win Sportsbook. So email f2wbet@gmail.com, f2wbet@gmail.com, and that's where you can bet on all kinds of local grappling events, things like that. They have all kinds of things on there. I help a little bit with setting the odds and directing them a little bit. I run the chat room, the Discord chat. So if you want that, just email Fight to Win Sportsbook, f2wbet@gmail.com. Other sites, more the bigger sites you can bet on are BetDSI and BetOnline. So if you want to open up an account at BetDSI, use the code JJM, and you'll get I think it's a 50% bonus to your first deposit. BetOnline, use the link below, and there's no code, but it's also a bonus. I don't know what it is, but BetOnline has also been very good to us. And so those are the three: Fight to Win Sportsbook, BetDSI, BetOnline.
All right, there it is, and let's get into these matches. Let's go. Okay, getting into Fight to Win 168. It's a women's only card happening, and we're going to kick it off with Maria Molly Jasiak versus Annette Stat. Ben, what do you have?
All right, so this match, it's kind of somebody who has already been a very, very dominant competitor in Annette, who's had a lot of wins in her career, a lot of championships. She's a bit older now, taking on somebody who is a little more modern in Maria. Maria is at minus 250 minus 200, and Annette is at plus 145. This match is something that I would avoid betting personally. We just don't know what's going to happen in this match, because this is really a clash of two competitors who they don't face each other in this format very, very often, and also they don't face each other as opponents. Annette is very selective in her competitions, and she's mainly doing super fights now. Maria is more of, she's kind of taken Annette's role and has been in competitions with the tournaments and things like that. And so in this match, Maria, I think, is the rightful favorite. I think she's younger. Her jiu-jitsu is a bit more modern. This is a gi match, so I have to give Maria the advantage, but I'm skipping this one. No bet for me.
All right, there you go. No bet from Coach on that one. So moving on, we have Luisa Montero versus Vedha Toscano.
So this matchup, Vedha is she's a top competitor, but she kind of hasn't broken into the top tier. I really see Luisa winning by submission here. We'd have to see what the props are for Luisa by submission, but I'm going to guess they're going to be pretty out of the range of something that I would bet personally, something like minus 250, minus 300. And I really wouldn't bet anything else on that this fight. I think Luisa is going to win by submission. She's just been on fire, and I think this one is another pass for me.
Oh wow, 2 passes from the coach.
Unless Luisa by submission is in the minus 125, minus 150 range, I doubt it. That's the only bet I would make.
All right,
Luisa by submission.
Very well. So moving on to the main event on this event's card, we have Natalie De Jesus versus Kendall Rusi.
All right, so Natalie is in a very, I think, in a very good position right now. She just beat Gabby Garcia at Who's Number One, no gi though, and this is a gi match. So I actually think she's better in the gi, and I think she has big wins, but she's also been caught. She's been caught twice by knee bar in recent competition. But this is something that I don't think Kendall is a big leg locker. Kendall's more of somebody who's dominant on top, and she needs to, in order for her to get submissions off, she needs to pass guard and be dominant in her positioning. And I just don't see how she's going to pass Natalie's guard without first surviving through many submission attempts, which will put her behind on the judging criteria. So I kind of see Natalie by submission or by decision here, and there's no bet that I want to make on the favorite side, but I do think that if Kendall by decision is in the near plus 300s, I think there's value there, because Kendall can absolutely win if she gets off one guard pass and a couple submission attempts without being in a few submission attempts of her own. I think that is a path to victory. And this one, if you're gonna bet, I would bet Kendall by decision, and I think I would bet Kendall by decision as a hedge if you were going to bet Naccielli straight up. Because Naccielli, I think, could finish the match by submission or decision. So if you bet her straight up and Kendall's decision line it covers your initial bet, I would make that hedge.
All right, so wrapping up with the segment called Ben's Bets, where Coach Ben will go over his betting strategy for any particular card. So recapping and summarizing your betting strategy, Coach, what's your betting strategy for Fight to Win 168?
Fight to Win 168, Louisa by submission. She's just been on fire. I think if that is within the range on your sports book of minus 125, minus 150, I would take that. I think Louisa by submission is pretty likely here, probably by leg lock. For the main event, I think Naccielli straight up is a good bet. You have to hedge this though with Kendall by decision. So make sure that your sports book has Kendall reusing by decision if you're going to bet Naccielli straight up. I don't see Kendall winning by submission. She's just not a submission girl. She's more dominating position, and if she can dominate position, she will get the submission. She's a good wrestler. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would do Kendall by decision as a hedge to Naccielli straight up or on the money line.
And Molly Jasiak and Stack, that's a pass.
I'm gonna pass. It's a weird match that I think anything can happen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Also filling this week, we have Chael Sonnen's Submission Underground in its 21st installment, taking place this Sunday, and you can watch it on UFC Fight Pass. And getting right into it, we have Kyle Chambers versus Chase Davis. Coach.
All right, so for Submission Underground 21, if you guys want to bet the undercard, so the prelims before, I guess this prelim, this is the only prelim offered on BetDSI and BetOnline. You got to use the Fight to Win Sportsbook, F2W bet at gmail.com. Send them an email, say you want to open an account, and then you can bet the undercard there. So on the major offshore sites that we have the odds, it starts with Kyle Chambers, which is he's at minus 175, taking on Chase Davis plus 130. This one, I favor Kyle. I think that he's an EBI veteran. He has competed a lot under EBI rules. Submission Underground uses EBI rules. It's even abbreviated EBI rules, so it's more likelihood that these matches will all go to overtime. And I think Kyle Chambers just is going to have an advantage. His master, Eddie Bravo, was the person that invented the EBI rules. He trains under Eddie Bravo. He trains under Richie and Gio Martinez. And he's just going to have a natural advantage in the overtime. And I actually think, his leg locks and his back takes are going to be enough to win here. Minus 175. It's a bit of a price to pay. I'm not sure if there are props for this one, but I think taking Kyle Chambers straight up is not a bad bet here. I would, I got to think about this one. I'll come back to it at the end, but Kyle Chambers 1 unit probably is not a bad bet. I think he probably should be in the minus 250 range. So yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. And then on this one, we have an interesting matchup. We have a team matchup with Team GFG versus Team ATT, our American Top Team. Right.
So this is a tag team match. I'm going to be honest and just tell you that I'm not too familiar with these types of matches. But this is definitely something that I would personally avoid betting, because I'm not even clear on the rule set personally, and I think there's a lot of variance, right? So, but if you want to just kind of take a look at this from the caliber of fighters and who they are and make your decision that way, I can give you some info there. Team ATT is Ricky Simone and his brother, I believe John Simone, I think so, is his brother, with the same last name. And Ricky is a UFC fighter. He's very, very good. His top game, his grappling, his wrestling is top tier. You can see this in his fights in the UFC. The other team, GFG, I don't know much about them. I do know that one of their competitors was recently in a combat jiu-jitsu. It was actually a couple days ago, and sustained some pretty big damage. And the word is that he's still going to compete, but he has a severely swollen eye. And that's something to take note of. If I had to bet this one, I would go with Ricky Simone. UFC fighter. The problem is that it's minus 250. You're paying a lot for this bet. So, me personally, I'm skipping this one.
All right. So that's a pass on the coach. So going on to the next one, we have Alima Leigh McFarland versus Jessica I.
All right. So this is this is Bellator versus UFC, right? Alima Leigh McFarland, former Bellator champion. She's belted on the 10 planet system. She's a good, great wrestler. Taking on Jessica I, UFC veteran. Jessica I always has had a pretty good top game. She's pretty dominant on top. She has good, clinches. She has good, pretty good wrestling. I'm not sure if it's as good as Alima Leigh, but Jessica I is going to be an underdog here. She's plus 165. Alima Leigh is minus 200. This is just because Alima Leigh is more of a grappler. She has won a lot more of her fights by dominating the grappling. I just don't think that Jessica I is going to be able to get a submission. She could win by escape time, but I have to go with Alima Leigh here because of just she's a grappler. She's a grappler taking on a mixed martial artist who's more of a striker, and Alima Leigh also has the wrestling advantage. So I'm skipping the bets here, but I favor Alima Leigh. If you want to pay the minus 200 price, it could be worse bets that you make. It's not that bad.
All right. So moving on, we have Andy Varela versus Satoshi Ishii.
All right, this is probably the weirdest match of the event of Submission Underground. Andy Varela has been on fire. This guy, I've always said, this guy has nasty chokes. There's something about him that just he gets the choke. He understands, especially head and arm type chokes. Rear naked type chokes. If he gets your back, you're in trouble. He's won many of his fights by submission via choke, and he's minus 215. So he's a favorite here. He's going to be undersized. Satoshi Ishii is gigantic human. He's probably the biggest Asian ever. He's Olympic gold medalist 2008 Olympics in judo, and he's for sure going to have the top position. It's unlikely that you're gonna put Satoshi Ishii on his back in any situation, MMA grappling, and so really it's gonna be Andy's guard game taking on Ishii's top game, and Andy is very good. Andy Varela is very, very good competitor, but he's not Craig Jones. He's not. The last match that Satoshi Ishii had, it didn't go anywhere for Ishii because Craig Jones is Craig Jones. He took his back, he choked him. It was very hard to even choke him. This is crazy defense, but Craig Jones got the submission. I don't know if Andy Varela is going to be able to get Ishii into those positions, and also I don't know if the size disadvantage for Andy is going to be a huge deal, but it's going to be something. Craig Jones is not a normal guy, so for Craig Jones to not have to deal with the strength of Ishii, it's just a testament to how strong Craig is and whatnot. Andy is not at Craig's level, right? So this is why this match is not minus 600 Andy Varela. One person has got submissions, Andy, and the other person really, I have never seen Satoshi Ishii, even attempt the submission, other than there was one time where he fought Gio Martinez and it got a really deep Kimura, and Gio somehow escaped, and it was incredible. But that's the only time I've ever seen Ishii even attempt a submission. So I don't know how Ishii's going to win, but this is a pass for me just because there's a huge size difference. I made a mistake a couple weeks ago by not respecting size. I bet Hunter Colvin against Gabriel Gonzaga, and Gabriel Gonzaga was just too big, man. It was just the size difference, and this could be a similar situation. So I would personally avoid this, or I would go with Varela by submission for a small bet if it's in the plus ranges. But that's it.
So it's a matter of will Varela find a choke on this one?
It's going to be
this
rough,
matchup.
man. I couldn't imagine facing somebody as big as Satoshi Ishii when you're not, 250 pounds.
Well, and let's also add it's no gi.
Yeah, and that's
No gi in a cage.
harder to, it's harder to trick somebody. There's less submissions, there's less, things. So it's rough. And but I do favor Andy, and I think a bet on Andy straight up again is not a bet that I would make, but it's not the worst bet in the world.
Okay. So moving on to the next one with someone who's always fun to watch, Roxanne Modafferi versus Amanda Lowen.
All right, so
Interesting.
it's an interesting match, but these matches that involve Amanda Lowen and MMA fighters usually go one way. Amanda wins by submission, usually in regulation or by overtime.
But Modafferi does have a grappling background. In MMA, she's known as the grappler in those matches.
Yes, but Amanda has faced a lot of these types of people, and I would not say that Roxanne is a she's not a pure grappler. She does rely a lot on her striking. She's an MMA fighter. She's a complete MMA fighter, and she's not a specialist. Even and Amanda Lowen has beaten grappling specialists in submission underground. She beat Felicia Spencer by submission. She beat Jessica I. There's a Jillian Robertson. There's a huge list. Amanda Lowen really should be probably the biggest favorite on the card, and the reason why she's not is I think because in women's grappling there's a little more variance than men. It just is what it is. It just is the case. But I will say that Amanda at this point has basically become kind of like the Mason Fowler of submission underground, or the old Craig Jones before Mason took over that throne, and she just doesn't lose. And minus 450. I don't think there's any way Roxanne can win, but here's the thing: submission underground uses EBI rules, and that's the thing. What if Roxanne chooses armbar and she just explodes on an armbar, and Amanda has to tap, and then she wiggles out of her own armbar or escapes the back, and it's over. It can just be over just like that. So in submission underground, I do think betting the big favorites is very dangerous. Unless it's somebody that you really that in regulation they can't lose, and also in overtime they can't lose. It's the only time I would pull the trigger on a big favorite like minus 450. Roxanne's plus 325. I can't bet Roxanne. It's just I just don't think that she can win. She has no paths to victory other than overtime miracle, and that's really it. This is the truth, and it's not because of Roxanne. Roxanne's very good. It's because of Amanda. She's very good. So that's it. No bet for me. Amanda by submission is probably going to be minus 300. So I would avoid props on this one as well.
Yeah, and in the overtime it can be an X factor.
Yeah.
Good points.
Yeah, overtime. So at the same time you don't want to bet favorites that big, because we've seen favorites lose in submission underground. Huge favorites. Craig Jones losing. There's a lot of times it's happened.
Yeah. And speaking of Mason Fowler, that brings us to Submission Underground's main event, and this one shocks me, Coach. The discrepancy in the odds makers came up with this match. But we have Richie Martinez versus Mason Fowler.
Right. I don't set these odds directly, but I have an influence over kind of how they're set, and I have an opinion on it, and people take my.
It's like
opinion.
a boardroom.
Exactly.
It's a boardroom.
It's
many opinions.
Yeah, and I did not think that Richie Martinez should have been plus 420, but
especially under this rule set, right, Coach?
It's the rule. But here's the thing: a lot of more so beginners will look at odds, right, and think it reflects the chances of somebody to win and the other person to win. It's not a. But here's what you have to understand: sports betting is not always about who's going to win. It's about where the money goes. So Mason is the favorite. Let's just be honest here. He's the favorite, right? He's beaten Craig Jones, who before Mason was able to beat him was like undefeated for like a year, and then Mason beat him twice. One time, a little bit of controversy, but he still won. Second time, convincing. There was no, nothing to say. He won, right? if you put Craig Jones into the position of Mason Fowler, what do you think the odds would be? You know, it would probably be very similar, right? Or, you know, some people may even put Craig even bigger favorite, but that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because Mason is the king of submission underground right now. But I totally get it, right? It's not just about, you know, the money and stuff. It is about who's going to win sometimes. And I don't think that Richie has no chance. You know, I think that the best chance, in my opinion, for Richie to win is to lock Mason up into that nasty rubber guard that he has. That to this day, nobody else does it as good as Richie Martinez, where he puts you in that rubber guard and he starts attacking that arm, kind of like in the omoplata. He's finished many people. Just look at his submission underground victories, and they're all that attack. You know, and that's an attack that, you know, if you don't know what's going on, you're gonna get submitted. And I think
a lot of times it's under this rule set, right?
It is under this rule set.
He came up under this rule set.
Right, and that's another good point. Is Richie also is, you know, he's 10th Planet. His master Eddie Bravo invented this rule set. He's had plenty of experience under this rule set, and also I think he's he's a more dangerous submission guy. Where this kind of leans into Mason's favor is, I think Mason will take this match to overtime, and overtime Mason has been he's figured something out. He's figured out a system that works for him. You know, he beat Vinny pretty convincingly. He beat Craig Jones twice. You know, he's beaten everybody else. You know, he's beaten people in regulation. You know, he beat Ishii in regulation. I mean, these are not easy things to do. And he beat somebody else recently that was also very good. I forgot, but it was also in regulation. It was an inverted armbar. You know, so this guy has been improving massively, and physically, people tell me that this guy is just, you know, strong. He doesn't feel like anything else. You know, and the one thing that I think both helps Richie and doesn't help him is that Richie likes to deal with these types of strong MMA type guys that are, you know, big and bulky and like to be on top, because he can get off his rubber guard game. But he's also been overpowered by the same strong guys before the past. So, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, I think Richie Martinez by submission, if it's like plus 700 or plus 600, plus 500, that you got to take that bet, because he could win. And if he wins, it's going to be by submission. Mason, I would stay away from all Mason bets at minus 550. You know, I just don't. You would take Mason at minus 550 against a person who had no shot, right? Richie has more of a shot, you know, than most people. Plus, it's EBI rule set. He knows what's up. He's training with a teammate who's on the card. Many other teammates actually on the card. So he has an advantage in that department. But still, I think Mason is just, until somebody beats him, he's still number one in submission underground. I'm avoiding bets on the main event except Richie Martinez by submission, and it's a very small bet, you know, maybe half or less than half a unit.
Do you want to do Ben's bets on this one?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go into Ben's bets, the segment where Coach Ben is going to give us his betting summary on this event. So, Submission Underground 21. Coach, what's your betting strategy?
All right, this is a pretty tough card. Kyle Chambers, I'm going to take 1 unit. I think he's just, in this rule set, I think he should be favored by a little more. Thing is, Chase Davis is very good, so I think Kyle wins in overtime by submission. Other than that, really, Amanda Lowen is the only other bet that I would say is something I'm confident in, and it would probably be by submission. So if you have the ability to bet Amanda Lowen by submission and it's better odds than minus 450, take that. If you don't have that option, depending on your bankroll, I just think that Amanda, it's going to be hard for her to lose. You know, I'm not going to recommend a bet it directly, but me personally, I will take 2 units on Amanda. She's just on such a win streak, you know, and I don't see a path for Roxanne to win. I just don't see one. And that's that. Okay, so 2 units on Amanda Lowen, 1 unit on Kyle Chambers. In the main event, Richie Martinez by submission, I think is worth half or less than half of a unit bet. So 0.25 unit bet for me. which say your units are $100, your bankroll, you if you're using $100 units, you would bet $25 on Richie Martinez by submission. I think that if he wins, he's going to win by submission. Mason, no bet. So those three.
All right. So we have a stacked city card on this one right here. We have who's number one, with the main event being Gordon Ryan versus Wagner Rocha. But we're going to start with Andrew Tackett versus Sean Yadamarco. Coach.
All right. So I talked earlier about how odds are not necessarily based on who's going to win, but there's other factors, where the money's going to go, the name recognition. There's many things, right? And this is one of these situations where Andrew Tackett probably is overvalued because of his name, because of his brother, William Tackett, been on a crazy streak. He himself has also been on a crazy streak too. He has one split decision loss in years. So the lines are not generally reflective of who's going to win, who's going to lose. The match is much closer than the lines reflect. Andrew Tackett minus 1,500. I mean, I don't know about that, but Sean Yadamarco, he's Renzo Gracie guy. The guy's going to know leg locks. He's going to have a good game. I've been told that he's a monster. The thing is, he trains gi and no gi, and he has not had the experience of somebody like Andrew Tackett, who just day in and day out, he has access to, I believe, more serious competitors and more regular training partners, and also his experience in the kind of like the circuit of super fights and no gi, submission only type matches. It's just, he has so much more experience, in my opinion. And so you can't bet this one, obviously. On Tackett, he's minus 1,500. You gotta bet 1,500 to win $100. You can't take that risk.
Yeah, we're looking at a lot. So what you just said is very important, because we are looking at some big gaps.
Yeah, there's going to be more.
Yeah, in this card. So it's a little unusual to have these kind of gaps. So what you say, so people, what Coach is telling you is very important about how this cash flow works for betting situations.
Right. I would say that a small little stab on Sean Yadamarco, maybe half a unit, is not bad. There's probably some value there. Will he win? I favor Andrew to win here under these rules, but $50 is going to win you several hundred. So I think a small stab on Sean Yadamarco. If he does end up winning, you're going to regret it. So if there's value, you should take value no matter where it is. Even if you think the other guy's going to win, you'll regret it if you leave value on the table. Trust me on this. All right.
So keeping it moving on this stacked card, we have Cole Bache versus Ned Johnson.
All right. So Cole, he is somebody from AOJ, and I don't know too much about either of these competitors. This is no gi match, obviously. So, Ned Johnson, 10 planet guy. I've heard good things. He's plus 800. This is quite a big underdog as well. Cole, AOJ. One of the things that makes me immediately just say pass on this one. Don't even, maybe another small stab on Ned Johnson if you have to. But AOJ, Art of Jiu-Jitsu, Mendes brothers, they don't send competitors out to these super fights, especially colored belts and lower level belts, to lose. They send these kids out to dominate. And I'm not surprised that Cole is minus 2,000. Obviously you can't bet minus 2,000. No parlays, none of this stuff. It's too out there. It's just, what if he gets caught? What if there's a footlock he's never seen? What if
as you say,
the lights come down?
The stage may fall.
Right. Who's number one? Probably not, because it's a flat stage and it's huge. But fight to win, the stage could come down, man, and then if somebody's declared the winner, it is what it is. So I'm avoiding this one also. It's just, maybe a small stab on Ned Johnson if you know something about him, or if you, want to just have some excitement in all the matches. Just a small 0.25, 0.2 unit bet on Ned Johnson, on Sean Yadamarco. Makes it a little fun. Will they come out and win, or will they come out and get submitted quickly? Who knows, right? That's why we watch the show. So no bet for me. Let me take a look quickly at the props. With the props, it's just Cole Abate by submission minus 1,000. You can't bet that. I would avoid. Anytime the money line is that skewed, the props are going to probably be skewed as well. So I would avoid that one.
Yeah, the numbers are just too much to overcome. All right, so Coach not touching that one. Moving on to Johnny Tama versus Oliver Taza.
Okay, so this is probably the closest match of the entire event, and I think that Oliver Taza is the rightful favorite. He is, Danaher Death Squad. He's got leg locks. He's got, people love this guy. They like to bet on him. He generally wins. But I think this match is closer than the odds say. I think Johnny Tama has, the tools to win, and I think he wins by decision. If you have watched some of his previous matches, he's beaten Ethan Krellinston, who's Oliver Taza's teammate, and they kind of had the same game. Similar. And so Johnny Tama, he's been on a little bit of a losing streak. He's said it himself. He's not happy with his performances coming up to this event, and I do think a small bet on Johnny Tama here is worth it. And I think both by decision and also the money line, right? Just in case he gets a submission. He has good attacks as well, and I do think that Johnny Tama, if he wins, is going to be by decision. Taza, I think the line is a little bit too favored in his direction. I'm not going to bet Taza. I just don't. Let me take a look at the props. Taza by submission is plus 125. By decision is plus 135. It's not good enough for me. Tama by decision is plus 220. That's a good one. I like that one. I also like Tama money line. So so I think Tama has great guard passing. I think if he gets one guard pass and he solidifies, that might be it. He might just take the match right then and there, and that I do see Johnny Tama is live underdog here, and he can win by decision.
Okay, so moving on, we have Maggie Grandaddy versus Rafaela Aguedus.
Rafaela is very, very good. She has kind of solidified herself as a top female competitor, as in like top 5, at least probably top 3. She's beaten Elizabeth Clay by decision. She beat her at who's number 1. She's the only person to really beat Elizabeth Clay and not get leg locked or submitted from the guard. And she's not the biggest submission threat, but she's just solid on top. She's got great positioning. She knows how to negate submissions. She has good passing. She has good top game, good wrestling, and I think that minus 400. This is a women's match. In order to take somebody at minus 400, you kind of have to give the other person no shot to win. And Maggie, I think, has a shot. It's just that in this rule set, because they don't only consider submissions, they do care about positions and also transitions and guard passing and things like that. So it's not just about attacks. Who's number 1 rules are a little different from fight to win rules. So in this situation, I do think Rafaela is going to win, and there's not many paths to victory for Maggie, but it's tough to bet a minus 400 unless you know for sure that that person is probably going to get a submission or the other person has very little to no paths. I'm almost there in convincing myself that that's the case, and I would probably bet Rafaela. I just need to really think about that a little longer. Maggie, she's getting better. I believe she's a brown belt, and she's getting better. But I just think that Rafaela is in a different caliber at the moment. I think she's been proving that in competition. And Rafaela, I do think a 2-unit bet is. I'll decide after we've finished.
Very good, very well. All right, so on the next one, I'm pretty excited to see this one. We have the return of Mikey Musumechi versus Marcela Cohen.
Okay, so this is the biggest favorite of the card here. So the only other huge favorites are Cole Abate and Gordon Ryan. But Mikey Musumechi is the biggest favorite of them all, minus 2,500. That is like a 99%, it's in the high 90s, right? Implied probability. Ooh. So Marcelo Cohen is a good competitor, good no-gi specialist. That's an advantage for him. He has a good Kimura game. He has a lot of things that I think could give Mikey new looks. But is that enough to beat somebody like Mikey Musumechi, who gi no gi really is considered, top probably 2 of the lower weight grapplers in the world, at his weight at least. And, he just doesn't lose. This guy doesn't lose at black belts. He very, very rarely loses. And this could be a situation where Mikey just comes out and outclasses Marcelo. And that's not taking anything away from Marcelo. I think just taking the match with Mikey Musumechi is you're taking a big risk here. And you're coming in as a big underdog, plus 1,000. I can't bet Marcelo. It's a little different than the other 2 big underdogs. And the reason is just because I truly don't know how Marcelo would win here, other than just a flash submission. He would have to really come out and submit Mikey immediately. I cannot see Mikey losing by decision. There's just, think about it, right? Mikey Musumechi, points type of a decision type of thing. How's he going to lose? How are you going to pass this guy's guard? So I just don't know how Marcelo's going to win. That doesn't mean I'm going to bet Mikey at minus 2,500. We talked about the stage collapsing and all that stuff. The props of this one, Mikey by submission is minus 2,000. So if you believe that Marcelo can survive the entire regulation, which is 15 minutes, Mikey by decision is plus 400. So if you think Marcelo is going to survive, Mikey by decision is actually a pretty good bet. I don't personally think that it's going to go to decision. I do think Mikey does get the submission in regulation. Marcelo has had some submission losses to top competitors recently, and I'm just going to say it how it is. I don't think he's the caliber yet to challenge the Mikey, who's the best in the world at this weight class, even in no-gi. He's right there, but I mean, it's tough to bet against somebody like Mikey, taking on somebody in his weight class especially. So for me, no bet. Props are just 2 out there. Maybe Musumechi by decision, but
big maybe.
Part of me feels like you're throwing your money away, because if he gets the submission, you lose. So that's the likely scenario, is submission.
All right. Well, and speaking of returns, we have the return of Nicky Rodriguez versus Yuri Samos. This is going to be a fun one.
This actually is probably, I said that Johnny Tama, Oliver Taza was going to be the closest match, and I still think so, but this one could also be the closest match. And it's just, we don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We haven't seen Nick Rodriguez in a while. He's had a move.
Yeah.
He's had, he hasn't competed in a while. He did have some recent, not recent, but he competed in Fight to Win. He fought Victor Hugo. I mean, he survived Victor Hugo's, just surviving Victor Hugo is crazy. Yuri is now more into MMA. Yuri's been on a little bit of a slide. He's had some tough losses. The BJJ stars didn't go his way. But Nick, we just don't know anything. This guy could have huge improvements, and I think baked into his odds, he's a favorite, minus 225, and Yuri's plus 185. Baked into Nicky Rod's odds is the fact that we expect him to have improved a lot, and also we expect that, because of John Danaher, because of his team, that they're just expected to do well. It's an expectation. And so yes, Nicky Rod probably is overvalued right now. So if you believe that Yuri is a good dog bet, plus 185. If you think this match is going to should more be even, 50-50, you got to bet Yuri at plus 185. I am more of the belief that I do think Nick Rodriguez is a terrible matchup for Yuri, and I think it's a terrible matchup because Nick Rodriguez, if you saw what he did at ADCC, this guy just, the rules set that who's number one, these sub-only things, they favor his style, because he's constantly attacking and you can't get an attack on him. So for Yuri to win, he almost has to submit. And I just don't know if he can do that. It's possible, but Yuri is not really a big leg locker. That's something that Nicky Rod has been weak to in the past. Probably much improved by now, but he's not a leg locker. Yuri's also not really a back taker. He's more like a top smash guy. And this is very tough to do against Nick Rodriguez. Yeah, I mean, Nick Rodriguez is going to wrestle you. You try to smash this guy from the top, he's going to wrestle you. So I just don't know how Yuri is going to pull this off. Maybe he gets a knee bar or something like that, but I can't put my money on Yuri. If Yuri went to plus 200, I have to rethink that. But Yuri almost has to win by submission, in my opinion. I don't know how he wins a decision against somebody like Nicky Rod, who's just so active. Let's look at the props. Nicky Rod by submission plus 300. Not going to bet that. That's a very, those are big odds, right? So plus 300. The bookies don't expect Nicky Rod to get the submission. Nicky Rod by decision plus 100. Maybe, but that's it's not good enough for me. Samoa's by submission plus 215. You would just take his money line. By decision, avoid that one like the plague. I just don't see him winning a decision. It'd be tough. It can happen, but it'd be tough. So this one, I don't have a personal lean. I do think, as far as bets go, I do think that Nicky Rod is going to win by decision. The odds aren't good enough for me. Plus 100 is just a 50-50. And I mean, he could get a submission. I mean, you're basically betting, if you bet Nicky Rod by decision, you're betting one outcome of a possibility of 4, right? So is it the likelier outcome? I think so, but I need better odds than plus 100. So this one's a pass for me.
Okay, so passing on the co-main, and we're going to slide right into the big main event, Gordon Ryan versus Wagner Hosha. Coach.
So this match,
Gordon's not combat jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah, combat, you got to give Wagner better odds than this. But I think the odds are set right here. Gordon is already minus 2,000 on BetOnline, so we're putting him at minus 1,250. Those were the openers. Gordon by submission, in fact, which is a prop bet on BetOnline, has already jumped to minus 1,500. So your people really believe that Gordon will win and by submission. I don't blame them. I think Gordon will probably win by submission. Let me just put that in the forefront. But he already has a victory over Wagner by submission. This is a long time ago. Wagner's put on a lot of weight. Gordon seems to have had some stomach issues. There's X factors here that you don't want to mess with if you're a sports bettor, right? So one X factor is Gordon's stomach issues. He's had very public, issues that he's talked about where he has some kind of a stomach disease, I think, and he's dealing with it, right? He's not able to put on weight. This is a big deal, man. I can't imagine even competing with these types of things. He's talking about nausea. He's talking about he can't eat food. This is a pretty big deal. And he's the type of guy who, I think Gordon is the type of guy who he doesn't even tell you how it is because he doesn't want to play the victim. He kind of wants to almost undersell it. So I think he's probably going through much worse than what he's letting people know about. And that's fine. I just have that sense. I don't know if you do, Jim, but I have that sense. Also, Wagner is coming on, man. Like, Wagner is not a guy who cannot win. Like, this guy, against anybody in the world other than Gordon Ryan, would not be plus 650. Can you think of another human being on earth that would be plus, that Wagner could face, in which he would be a plus 650 underdog?
Yeah, no, he's been on this tear, like a resurrection.
Right, like I don't even know, like say if he faced the second best, grappler in the world, right, which probably is Craig Jones.
Yeah.
You wouldn't set Wagner at even close to 650. It would probably be like plus 150 or something.
Okay, so now we're going to go into Ben's bets. In this section, Coach Ben is going to give us his betting strategies and things that you may want to look out for if and when you place these bets. So, Coach?
All right, let's start with Gordon Ryan and Wagner Hosha. This is a match where I just don't see any bets that I personally would place. The only one that even looks enticing would be Gordon Ryan by decision at plus 550. And that would only be if you suspect that Wagner can survive 30 minutes with Gordon, right? And Gordon has said that he is going to punish Wagner and then submit him when he feels like it. If that's the case, right, he might let the match go on longer than, he wants, and Wagner may end up, making it to the end, right? If you're looking at it from the odds point of view. I don't suspect that to be the case. I just think Gordon, has a victory over Wagner by submission already, and I can't make a bet here. Wagner is probably a little bit disrespected by the odds. I would say anybody else in the world, Wagner would never be a plus 650. It's more about Gordon having the size and he's on some kind of like almost 40 fight win streak. It's just, you can't bet against that guy. So that's really what it is. No bet for me there. The next match, Nicky Rod by decision, I think is a good bet here. Nicky Rod isn't really the biggest submission guy, right? So he will, if he does win, I do see Nicky Rod by decision. If Yuri's odds go over, let's say at plus 200 or plus 225, Nicky Rod's a fan favorite. I would bet Yuri at those odds because at that point, Yuri has some value. This is ADCC champion, right? But Nicky Rod is just one of these guys that he kind of beats guys with that rule set, and he's
His
not
volume of action.
It's not a great matchup for Yuri that from my point of view.
And with that one, you're saying keep an eye on the odds on game day. If Yuri goes to plus 200, there might be action there.
Yeah, Nicky Rod by decision plus 100. I'm going to lay 1 unit on that. I do think that that's a likely outcome. And I really think, you just have to dodge Nicky Rod getting a submission, I guess. And that would be it. Mikey Musumechi and Marcela Cohen, avoid this one. I think if you believe that Marcela will survive the match, then Mikey Musumechi by decision is plus 400. There's, it would be a good win if you hit that prop, but I personally am going to avoid it. That's the only one that I would consider if I was going to make a bet on that match. No bet for me. I do have 2 units on Rafael Aguedus straight up, so just the money line minus 400. I think she can get the submission, or she could get the decision victory here in 15 minutes. I just think that she's on a different level right now. There are levels to this, and I think she has proven herself to be on a different level. Maggie, she needs a little more time. She's at the biggest stage, but I think she needs more experience. And so, Rafaela, 2 units, minus 400. Okay, it is a risk. Johnny Tama, I'm going to put half a unit on Tama by decision, and also half a unit on Tama straight up. And the reasoning for that bet is that, say Tama gets a submission, you don't want to get left with just a decision prop. That would suck. But at the same time, there's more value on the decision prop, so you do want to have that in there, right? Taza, he's favored, and I do believe he's the rightful favorite. It's just that I don't see any value on Taza, so I don't see any value in the submission and decision lines. And straight up, minus 235, it's going to be a lot closer than that. Like I said earlier, Ethan Krellinston had a match with Tama, and Tama beat him by decision. And Taza, this is the biggest stage, and Taza has had some issues in the past with that, right? So Johnny Tama by decision 0.5, Johnny Tama straight up 0.5 units. All right, Cole Abate and Ned Johnson, I would say I'm avoiding this one just because of the AOJ thing. They don't send lower belt competitors in to lose. They just don't. They send them in to dominate. And Ned Johnson can't absolutely win. He's live, but I just you might be throwing the money away if you bet here. And I don't blame you, but man, it's tough to bet against Guy Mendez.
You're not going to touch that one.
I'm not touching that one. I'm not touching that one. Even the props are just it's not good enough value. Abate by decision, it's 15-minute match. Submissions are very likely. Andrew Tackett, I do think, is overvalued. And so his name, it's his name, it's his win streak, it's his popularity, it's his brother. People don't really know who Sean Yadamarco is. He's a Renzo Gracie guy, and I do think Sean, he's live here. I do think a half a unit bet on Sean Yadamarco straight up is a good one. And also Sean by decision at plus 1,200. I would consider that for 0.1 or 0.2 units. And I would consider Sean Yadamarco. I'm probably going to put a 0.25 or a 0.5 unit bet on Sean Yadamarco, just based on the fact that this is lower level, not lower level like skill level, but experience, I would say, and
Yeah.
a little bit of skill. You know,
Guys
these
that are earlier in their
yeah,
career.
there's experience, right? So there's more variance here versus somebody like, you know, Mikey Musumechi, Gordon Ryan. These guys are very consistent.
Body of work.
Very, very consistent. So that's it. You know, those are the bets. Hopefully we can list them. And
So live dog on
Marco, yeah, he's the only guy I think is a huge dog that I would pull. I would just put a little stab on that. Obviously Tama's an underdog, and then obviously Yuri, he has to pass a certain point for me, but I would bet Yuri at plus 200 and above.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Where can they go to bet one more time?
You can go to BetDSI, use the code JJM, BetOnline, use the link below. You can also contact Fight to Win Sportsbook, F2WBet@gmail.com.
All right. Well, there it is. Ben's bets. They are now yours. He's Coach Ben. You can follow him at Coach BZ on Instagram. I'm Jim Lawson. Thank you, Coach. Thank you for another episode, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. See you guys. Good luck.